These are 3 settings I make sure are always correct on my camera before I go out to shoot. First up is the autofocus mode. If I'm shooting a moving subject, I make sure I have continuous autofocus mode on, and if I'm shooting something still, like a landscape for example, I'm making sure I have one shot autofocus turned on. Next up, we have white balance. Now, sure, I understand you can edit this in Lightroom when you're editing. However, I always like to make sure I can see the colors that I'm working and shooting with. This means that 99% of the time, because I don't want to manually change my white balance, I'm shooting with auto white balance, and I always make sure that's selected. And finally, the last setting I always check to make sure is correct on my camera is that I'm shooting in RAW. This hardly ever changes, but the last thing I want to happen is to go out, have an incredibly good shoot, come back and realize I've shot everything in JPEG. It takes less than a second to check. Make sure you're shooting in RAW.